right. Good morning. Good morning. Week
Good
two
morning.
of the DM, Florida Real Estate with Robert Morillo, broker associate with Team Aroa at Compass, license number BK3373543. What's going on, John? Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. John Sepulveda, MLS 1309244 with Origin Point. Good to be here. Week 2 of the DM.
Amen. Amen. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Mortgage Guy. What's going on?
Quiet day today. Obviously, over the weekend, not much happened. There was some talk on Friday of Deutsche Bank, in Europe, and the market was, shares, issues there in Europe. I thought maybe we might get a repeat of the Silicon Valley over the weekend. It did not. So that kind of, that's a good thing. Other than that, we're just kind of waiting for the reports of this week, but nothing too crazy. The bond market, on Thursday and Friday, and as expected, went with the Fed hikes. So people are, oh my God, he's the rates, and went in the market, came out of the market. Stock did a little bit better on Friday, but the bonds went down for sure. So hopefully that momentum continues onto this week, and we get some news that as reports come out that show that inflation is being tamed a little bit. And hopefully what that allows is for the Fed in the next meeting to not raise interest rates anymore, right? That's kind of what the market is. He alluded to in his speech this week at the press conference that there was one more rate hike coming, because he issued what the ending rate is that he's looking at, and it's unchanged. That's what he's been saying all along. So that means one more 25 basis point rate hike at his next meeting. So that's kind of what the market is until the next meeting, which is in May. That's when the market is all the entire speculation. It's going to be, does he stop? Does he do the 25 basis points, or does he stop, or does he start cutting? Right. That's what the market's going to be betting on. And that May 10th date is kind of involved, because that's when the report, the PCI report, PCE, I'm not sure at this point which one of the two is, but the report comes out on May 10th, when the data from year over year, as I explained last week, it's going to give more room and show the lagging cost is going to show, and it's going to give more room to go on the downside on the 10-year bonds, which is what's closely tied to mortgages.
So with everything that happened last week, and I have a question. I have this question because I got conditional loan approval for my personal loan, and originally we were supposed to lock in at 6.75, but when I went to sign the documents to lock in the rate, we actually locked in at 6.5. So
because the rates went down the last couple of days, and you caught it you caught the break, and you caught it, because they actually repriced on Friday at the end of the day. There was a reprice in the market. They crept up a little bit because the 10-year bond kind of, so.
And that's when it happened, was Friday late afternoon. So that was the impact of last week's activity, huh?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So I mean, now it's kind of like you almost predicted exactly what was going to happen last week, which is pretty cool that we had it documented. So there was a couple things that I've been getting in my inbox from you as far as information goes, and something that really caught my eye. One, we had already briefly spoken on the power bid approval that Origin Point has to offer. And something that really caught my attention was the same day mortgage.
It's catching a lot of people's attention.
Yeah. The fact I saw something about, it was step 1, you connect us with your clients. Step 2, they get everything that we need within an 8-hour period. And step 3, you guys take care of the rest and get a same day mortgage.
Yep. That's what the program is meant to do. It's not a new program. Like, it's not something that we just made up in testing. Actually, it's been, they've been doing it. They funded, I don't know how many millions of dollars, right? Like, it's been they've been utilizing this, a guaranteed rate. Remember, we're guaranteed rate company, so guaranteed GR has been using it already. Now at Origin Point, we have access to it. We've grown enough that we have access to that program, which is really, people are like, what? Like, they don't believe it. So the concept is you apply for your mortgage, regular mortgage, and you can close in as little as 10 days, right? Because you need the appraisal. You can't close in a day, obviously, because you need the 3-day, period for the CD. So it's not, it's not closing in one day. But
when you say same-day mortgage, essentially you're saying
you're
like
getting approved.
approval.
You get an actual approval from an underwriter in the same day mortgage, and you could close in 10 days. And actually, you could close sooner if you get an appraisal waiver, because this is only good for conventional.
And this is
conventional loans.
Okay, gotcha.
Right? It's not ready for FHA yet, not VA. It's not ready for government. It's coming. They're working on it, but right now it's just conventional. And so the appraisal waiver, are you familiar how appraisal waiver works?
Yes, but
Okay.
however, before that, what is the quickest you've ever closed on a FHA or VA loan?
20 something days.
Okay, so about 3 weeks.
In the peak of the pandemic and the craziness of it, had a couple of, house was finished, people were going out. I mean, I don't remember, but it's happened a lot. It's happened one time. So, but 20 something days, I haven't really kept track, because the challenge is the appraisal.
Yeah,
and it's really what the challenge is. It's I mean, the underwriting is the underwriting, right? But if you submit all your documents, you get them up front. For example, like there's within the same day mortgage program, there's an incentive, right? If people provide the documents within 8 hours of application, they get a $250 lender credit towards closing costs. I mean, it's a small credit, but it's $250 dollars of free money just for submitting the documents, because that's the key, right? If you submit the documents of having the information up front. In my case, I collect everything up front anyway, so people would have right away the income docs and asset docs, right? And their credit, obviously, they've applied. So the key is that that's submitted up front within those 8 hours, and then the file will be submitted to underwriting, will be fully underwritten, and a conditional loan approval will be issued, because it'll be subject to the property. If there's an appraisal waiver, they get the full approval, because obviously there's no need for an appraisal. And that depends on the property and the whole scenario of the loan. That's how the appraisal waivers are done. Like, it's determined by the machine learning. The system determines what properties are eligible for appraisal waiver.
So the appraisal waiver doesn't mean that does it mean that the appraisal doesn't have to happen at all, or it just happens?
No, it doesn't have. It's like a desk appraisal, like it's online, like it's an online tool that they have.
Like an automated.
No, they get the information from the property, but there's no actual appraiser that has to go out to the property, which is the time, right? That's what kind of, obviously when the market's busier, that's another issue. During the height of the pandemic, there was issues with appraisals, because there was so much volume, there was not enough appraisers to, so they were like sometimes it was, 3-4 weeks wait time to do an appraisal.
I know.
Because there was so much volume.
Yeah, I know.
And then we have no control over it. We can't really, you know what I mean? It's just, we're in line, like, so it's that caused the problem. So that's why sort of the same day mortgage it's a 10-day, but it all depends on the appraisal. But what does that mean to a borrower, right?
Conventional only, right?
Correct.
And essentially the appraisal waiver is like the algorithm telling the bank, like, hey, the property values around this area support this purchase.
Exactly.
We're good to go.
Correct. That's a little bit, but that's basically what it is. Yeah. So, and that doesn't happen in all the properties, obviously, right? The majority of the property, there is an appraisal that needs to be done. But
if you're surrounded by a bunch of unique properties, it might be a little harder, a little bit more challenging to get the appraisal waiver, right?
It's more, honestly, the appraisal, like, to get an appraisal waiver is, higher down payment amount. And then obviously where the property is located. I think that's, I don't know I haven't seen the algorithm, so I don't know all the, data points that are required, but the way I see appraisal and my experience in getting appraisal waivers is typically the larger down payments, at 20% down payment properties or loan applications that get that kind of qualify. That's kind of the first, or one of the filters. I don't know if that's the first filter, but it's one of the data points and filters that they use. It's the down payment amount.
Okay.
But nonetheless, the whole point of the same day mortgage is if you get that approval, you know, in a day, you're already approved for a loan. You have your conditional approval, which is, you know, number one, it takes a lot of the headache and worried about, you know, out of people's minds, because people are always concerned about getting that approval, especially on a situation where there's, you know, other, like the domino effect, right? Other people are buying properties. So if one loan doesn't get approved and the other one doesn't get approved, and there's sort of a chain reaction of, you know, of sorts. So if you go in and you put an offer and you already have an approval, I mean, you're just ahead of, you know, just like when you put a cash offer, right? Somebody puts a cash offer, they're kind of, you know, ahead of the, you're right. That's a better position because of cash. The seller knows, okay, they got cash. I don't have to worry about financing. The issue with cash offers is then you start getting people that put cash offers usually are offering less than, you know, than full asking price, right? So they're using, you know, so now if you have a buyer that doesn't have cash and you're going up against a cash offer, but you have an approval already, now you're in better, you know, in a little bit better position than to compete with that cash offer, right? Because now the seller knows you're already approved. I just need the appraisal to go through and then we're closing. So that's the whole concept of that.
Technically, it doesn't matter how fast you can close because you still have the process to go through with title and them having a. That's at least typically it's gonna take at least a week for title to be ready.
I mean, that's why
it can be done sooner.
Yeah.
The quickest I've seen a deal close is 72 hours. 72 hours, and that was a cash deal, not a
okay, yeah,
I'm just talking, just generally speaking, as title being ready.
Correct.
That's the record that I've seen through someone else personally. It wasn't even my deal.
Yeah.
Just through knowing
they got the title and
who managed that transaction.
Got
she was able to get it done within a 3-day period.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, and that's why they say like it closes, you know, as quick as 10 days.
Exactly.
You got the appraisal, you got the title. So 10 days is because you order the appraisal right away and you order the title right away, obviously. So, you know, when you get on day one, you order out of that. So that gives you that week of, you know, of time to be able to close.
Yeah. And then of course with financing on those deals, are you still having to get a survey for that same day mortgage situation?
100%. There's no, the process is the same. It's just they've done it in a way where, and the main thing, honestly, I mean, the biggest thing is the underwriting, just getting it through the system, get the documents and submit to underwriting. Because what it is, it's really all technology. It's really what's driving that, right? It's the bar is uploading the documents and the technology is doing the grabbing the info, you know, and doing the whole, that's what the whole key to this thing is, just the AI and the technology.
So the same way appraisers were backed up, I know surveyors were backed up too at one point. So since there's a solution for appraisals, so to speak, with the appraisal waiver, is there a solution for like, all right, if you can't get the survey done on time, what happens then?
Robert, I've never had an issue, you know, a delay because of survey was not like, I haven't had that. And even at the height of the, you know, when we were doing, you know, 40 closings a month, there was, you know, at the beginning of there was months where I was doing 40 closings a month, and I never had an issue like a delay. We had to push back the closing because the survey wasn't in. That the appraisal, we had issues. Appraisals we did. I've never had an issue with the survey. Honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool,
So
cool.
you know what I mean? There's nothing in the talks. I haven't heard anything about surveys because I don't believe that's really like a major concern that would delay this.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then what is the difference? So I guess for the same day mortgage being conventional only for now, for the time being, the power bid approval is probably the next best thing for FHA and VA buyers.
Correct. And power bid approval was something we already had. Right. And then so the concept between the power bid approval is when somebody gets pre-approved, you submit it. We were able to submit it to underwriting. And in the pre-approval process, the file will get fully underwritten. And so they collect the docs, but there's not that same day. It's not the same day process. So it's not as fast as the same day mortgage, right? The power bid approval is just that thing we've had. And you're correct. For FHA and VA, that would be the way to go. We go that way and we get the approval and it's already approved. The
Mhm.
same day, it's a new that got released last week on Thursday. It's a brand new to origin point.
Okay.
So the concept of that, obviously, that kind of it duplicates some of the power bid because again, it's a new product, an upgrade product. But now it's what it does is just it's that closing quick, up to 10 days you can actually close a loan, and you really could. I mean, if you submit the docs up front, that's really what the path is, right?
So
So
this also sounds ideal for people who would have a sale contingency. Like let's say I already own a
100%.
home and I know I anticipate netting a certain amount upon the sale of my home, but I don't want to miss out on this opportunity here.
And that's what I meant by that domino, because when a lot of people, move up buyers they list their property and they're buying another property and they're selling and they need the proceeds from this property to buy the next property. So
Mhm.
your buyer goes in and buys this property. But if the seller something happens in their financing and they don't get approved, then there's there's dominoes, right? There's a process and not everything behind gets delayed, right? So if your seller is selling, if your buyer is selling also a house, their house gets delayed because they can't, what I mean? It's just all a domino effect. So that helps a lot in that situation. That's the whole, you take that sort of waiting and time and waiting for the decision out of the way, and you're getting it up front.
Interesting.
So both on the power bid and the same mortgage, the concept behind that is, really on the power bid, it's when you sign the contract, because you put your offer in, right?
Yeah.
And once the offer is accepted, there's a 10-day period. Sometimes it's a lot faster than that, but there's a period when people go do the home inspection before they sign the purchase and sale, right? So the concept behind power bid is that when the person puts an offer in the house, there's a pre-approval in process. We submit it to power bid. File gets fully underwritten. When the borrower finishes the inspection process and is signing the purchase and sale agreement, the buyer already has the approval. You follow me? So at
Yeah.
signing on the purchase and sale, buyer already has the approval. So the seller knows, okay, my buyer's approved. All I need is the appraisal. So that takes that anxiety out of the way. The offer's been accepted, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. The offer's already been accepted. So it's not, the seller's not, you don't have an advantage over over anybody else because your offer's already been accepted. But when you're signing the purchase and sale, not only more, well, depends who you're talking to, right? If you're talking to the listing agent, of course, the listing agent is going to see, well, this is better for my seller because they have the confidence that the loan's already approved.
Exactly.
I would argue it's better for the buyer because the buyer is the one that's going through all the anxiety, especially the first-time home buyer.
Because they don't want to. They're experiencing FOMO. They don't want to miss out.
And they're afraid, and they've never done it before, and what's all the stuff and all these moving pieces. And so when they sign the purchase and sale, if they know they're already approved, you know how much, that much pressure and that much stress, it just, boom, it disappears because the loan's already approved. Now we just got to wait for the appraisal. So it just puts everybody in a much, much better situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm just thinking as an agent, that's something that I get to share with my sellers going in, like, hey,
100%.
we can get you pre-approved with the same day mortgage with my lender. So like that, as we're preparing to list your property and we create your collection, if you see something, you have the ability to put in a confident offer, knowing that, hey, we can appeal to the sellers and buy that time so that we can have your property under contract and know with the same day mortgage, we can close fairly quickly.
You're already approved. Yep. Yeah. And if both the listing agent and the buyer both go on the same day mortgage, because if the seller's ready, but the buyer doesn't do it. But if they both do it, they both apply, closing loans in, less than 30 days. I mean, if, the appraisal takes long,
As
it's
long as
still,
all the ducks in a row.
you still have everything all set. And again, the main thing is, I think the peace of mind that people have from having okay, I'm already approved. Which granted, that starts in a different process, right? Because once you get the conditional loan approval, it's that. But the difference is on a typical loan, when you get a conditional loan approval, the 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 process is there are still conditions to be met for the borrower. Income conditions, asset conditions, those type of
Okay.
conditions still have to be met.
So
When
let's
you
talk
have
about that because I got my conditional loan approval and I've got like 8 conditions to meet. So this is the part where most buyers either get frustrated, exhausted, or worried because it's like, hey, I've already given you everything you asked for. So why more? Why are you asking more questions? I already gave you everything that you need. Like,
yeah,
why do I have to resubmit more information? Why do I have to add on and explain it? Why more?
yeah, I get that question all the time, and honestly, you know what my answer to people every single time is, and
What's
I
that?
kind of flip it on and I say, okay, let me ask you a question. You know, $300,000 loan amount, right? I'm just making up the number, but obviously that's
Mhm,
a. I said, you don't know me. You just met me in this transaction, right? You don't know me in the past, right? Yeah.
mhm,
Okay. And then, what if I said to you, my wife and I are going to buy a house. Would you lend me $300,000 so we could buy a house? Would
mhm,
you want to know what I do for a living? And would you want to know what my wife does for a living and how we're going to be able to pay your mortgage back? Well, yeah. This actually discussion goes into, for example, husband and wife buying. The husband has 760 credit score, wife has 640 credit score. We have to use the wife's credit score of 640 because you have to use the lower of the two, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
a related question. People, well, why can't you use my credit? How come you have to use my wife's? Well, because
You
the
guys are
credit
applying
score,
together.
well, you're applying together, but the credit score is your report card. So I say, okay, if you're the lender, if I'm asking you to lend me $300,000 to my wife and I, you see my credit's great, wonderful, but my wife has a 640 score. Which credit are you going to take into consideration to determine if I have the ability to repay your money back? Would you take my credit or would you look at my wife's credit that is slower? And
Mhm,
oh yeah, I have to look at your wife's credit because it's slower. I said, well, you just answer your own question. And so it's really, I mean, a bank is an entity. It's a financial institution that is there for profit. They're taking people's deposits. If it's a bank, right? They're taking the people's deposits that we've talked about with Silicon Valley, and they go invest that. They keep 10% on the books and invest 90%. So it's really a business. The
mhm,
banks, they don't, the buyer is a first time home buyer, has concerns. They found their dream home. I mean, it's banks, that's not part of, there's no emotion in the transaction. It's, are you able to pay the loan back? Number one, the bank is investing the money, so they want a return on their investment. But number two, and I would say maybe more importantly, the rules say that the banks have to do the due diligence after with Dodd-Frank after 2008, financial crisis. Now the
mhm.
banks and the underwriters have to do the due diligence and provide proof that the borrower has the ability to repay the loan. That's a
Got it.
big, thing now. So, because underwriters, they can, they come, if the loan, it's defaults, they go back and now they're looking at the underwriter and saying, okay, how come you approved this loan? Where's
Why
the
didn't
ability to
yeah,
repay?
why did this pass your toll?
How did this? So there's a big, there's a lot of pressure in the industry to do things right? So people are not put in situations where they cannot pay a mortgage back, and then they're faced with a foreclosure and everything that happens with it. So
And that
it's
explains for most people waiting for the market to crash, that explains why there's a whole lot less foreclosures on the market than there was back then.
100%. There's no such thing. I mean, there are going to be foreclosures. People have situations, but it's a regular cycle of things, right? Tied to the economy. You lose your job, you can't pay your mortgage. That's just tied to the economy. In
Mhm,
2008, there was another pressure added, which was people who were in a mortgage that they could not qualify. They did not have the income to pay, and they had a mortgage that adjusted because it was adjustable rate.
mhm,
If those mortgages, the stated income mortgages, were 30-year fixed, we wouldn't have had the crisis that we
mm,
had, because nobody would have to refi. Nobody would have stopped paying and said, oh, I'm upside down. My rate went up, my payment went up $500. That wouldn't have happened. But because they were all adjustable rate mortgages, when they adjusted, payment went up. People couldn't afford it because they didn't have the money. They had no
mhm.
ability to repay because they're paying something that they don't have. They don't make the income, and that's what triggered all the craziness in the market. So
Yeah.
this is just it's a feature that gives not only speed, but I personally see it as it's just a safety net, an additional safety net to provide people who are very anxious and nervous in a transaction, both the seller and the buyer, because the seller is selling to buy another house. They got tons of stress.
I
They're
think
worried
it
about this.
also it eliminates it minimizes that emotional roller coaster too. The guessing and the waiting and okay, we gotta wait on this and we gotta wait on that, and boy, because
And you know what?
when it's drawn out over a 30, 45, 60-day period, that anxiety lasts multiple nights.
And I'm going to share a little secret with you,
Yeah.
like insider secret. There's no such thing as a condition that just popped out of nowhere that the underwriter just asked for.
Mm-hmm.
And your closing has to be delayed because suddenly we need something that we didn't need before. That happens. That's industry wide. That happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist. There's no such thing for that. There's no such thing as, I mean, it does happen in, for example, a seller owns a property, I don't know, in Maine, and he didn't disclose that, right?
Yeah.
And then they do the search and he appears that he's got the property records in Maine, right? That's the last.
Or a buyer didn't disclose that they were married.
Right, something like that, right? So
Yeah.
that type of situation is something that could pop up last minute. Like, wait a minute, like before closing. Well, you're married. This thing, here's a, you know what I mean? Like that stuff is real. It's the income stuff that, we need the additional paychecks, or usually, unfortunately, it's the loan officer that makes up these rules and excuses. The truth is that the loan officer missed it at the beginning, and he or she should have caught that before and submitted that. Because what happens is the way the industry works is, right, especially now with the automation, people apply online, they upload the pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, so on and so forth. But you're able to apply online and run DU. When you apply online, the system runs it automatically, right? With the information the borrower puts down, right? So if the borrower says they make 50 grand a year, that's the credits pulled, and that's what's used, and it gives you a underwriting decision, automated underwriting decision. And then that document has to be validated and the income has to be validated. So if the LO does that, but does not validate the income, once the underwriter looks at the income, right? So let's say the borrower puts in, just he or she makes $50,000 a year, but then when the pay stubs come, that it's not a salary, it's hourly, and they actually, 1 week works 32 hours, another week works 37 hours, another week works 35 hours. So they don't really work the same amount of hours a week, and they have to average out. They have to average out the income. So if you average it out, it can therefore lower that income. And if you're tight on debt to income, if you go over the threshold on a conventional loan over 49.99% of debt to income ratio, then that loan is no longer eligible for a Fannie Mae loan, right? Conventional loan, Freddie or Fannie. So that has the income not calculated the same as when the borrower applied, that will cause an issue. Like that's an underwriting issue that'll come up. But that's something that the LO should catch up front. The LO should look at the pay stubs and determine, okay, this is not 40 hours a week. I need to average my income. That's on the LO.
Yeah.
So a lot of those issues are caused, unfortunately, by the LO. That's why we talked about last week. Is you got to work with a professional, professional agent, professional lender. That's the stuff that's not really talked about, right? People don't really kind of know, but that goes on in the industry. I mean, I'm sure you've had issues with. I'm sure you had issues with, when buyer comes to the table with their own lender, and I'm sure, there's no way you've been selling real estate and haven't had a bad experience with it's just.
Oh yeah, I've had lenders go completely ghost. Completely ghost.
Yeah. And then things happen and they don't answer the phone.
The week of closing.
The phone doesn't answer. I mean, that doesn't work, because you know what? This is a messy process. I mean, it's a very large $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 purchase. That is the largest financial transaction that most people will do in their lifetimes. And there's obviously stress and mess, and things come up, and so the way you have to tackle that is you got to be proactive and figure out how to solve the problem, not hide and go ghost and not answer the phone, because the problem won't solve itself.
Right,
but that's where the knowledge comes in, right? When you have an issue, you got to figure out how to fix it. You got to, like a cat, you got to land on your feet. You know what I mean? You can't.
We're solution specialists.
You have to be. That's what the difference is. So that same day mortgage, I really like it. I think it's a really, really cool tool. And if utilized properly, and if agents kind of grasp this and start dealing with, when they go list in their presentations and they present to their sellers a listing presentation, they
Mhm.
incorporate into this. And by the way, I can get you, so your next house, we're going to get the same day mortgage. You're going to get approved the same day. You're going to know when your offer is accepted, you know, you're already approved for the next house. I mean, the peace of mind that comes with that is priceless. Because as you well know, I'm sure, when you have, you know, there's well-qualified buyers, you know, 800 credit score, 20% down, no issues with the DTI, and people are still nervous. And
Mhm.
I've
Oh
had
yeah, it
people,
doesn't matter what level you're at as a
they're
buyer.
still, it's just
You
still a stress, and they're still stress, because if they don't do this for a living, they don't understand, you know, it's complicated. There's a lot of, you know, terms and a lot of things you got to know, and things you never
and
heard, words.
it interrupts your daily pattern,
Mhm.
because you go from doing your day-to-day activities to now you have something else thrown in the mix that it's something you have to pay attention to until the process is over with.
Until the process is over.
And then on top of that, you got to think about moving your personal belongings.
And kids and school. I mean, it's a stressful
The whole
time. It's
dynamic,
stressful
absolutely.
time. So people stress about it, and it's, you know, and sometimes it's, you know, I've had people that, you know, I mean, just, it was a no brainer. I mean, I don't say, when I see a loan, I don't jinx it and say, oh, it's going to be a slam dunk, because there's no such thing as a slam dunk in the lending industry. But when you, you
Yeah.
know, when you see a, you know, super, you know, high, you know, 20% down, 800 credit score, you know, no debt, like, just, you know, it's a no brainer. It's going to happen. And those buyers are super stressed. Oh my God.
Honestly, so you're never gonna notice a slam dunk
There's no,
until the deal is done.
after it's
And it was
closed.
exactly. You never notice it in the process. So when it closes on time, when your buyer is 100% compliant, when your buyer's agent, listing agent is working in sync with one another, when the title company does everything flawlessly, it's not until the end of the transaction that it closes smoothly with no delays, no discrepancies or anything. You never notice that it's a slam dunk until the very end of the transaction. So after the fact.
Correct. But when
And that
you,
happens rarely.
well, because I mean, now no, it does happen. You do
No,
get
no, I'm
closings
saying
without
it does
issues.
happen, but
Is
it rarely.
it? I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, just kind of looking at sort of my, right. I mean, besides appraisal issues or things that come up that are completely unexpected, for the
Mhm,
most part, the majority of transactions are done within the timely manner. They really are. I mean,
mhm.
it's just, there's really not. It's when you know, it's the, when you have an LO that's you know, that's messier, is not as good in the communication, is not as good in getting followed through, it's not as good as getting the docs up front. Like it, I'm telling you, in the mortgage industry, that's a big thing, you know, for LOs.
Common.
Getting people to get the documents. I mean, there's
Mhm,
LOs that you know, they get the, and there's different lenders that have different processes of how the application is submitted.
mhm.
So, you know, there's really, until the files with the processor getting submitted to underwriting, is when they start asking people for pay stubs and W-2s. So that, in my opinion, creates an opportunity for a messy process. I will
Mhm.
not issue somebody a pre-approval until I see their income docs.
Yeah,
That's just how I operate. I don't, because I put my name to it. I sign my name at the
exactly.
bottom, and when I sign my name at the bottom, it says that, Joe and Mary qualify for this mortgage for this amount, and I put my name to it. So if I put my name to something, it's got to mean. So I
Yeah,
get
there's
the
no
docs up
sense
front.
in compromising yourself for the sake of
I mean,
getting
it's not.
in the under contract if they can't get approved.
Correct, because then, if you're the agent I'm working with, and I'm giving you a pre-approval, and I'm telling you that these people qualify, then you're going out and putting an offer. You're going out to a listing agent, and you're saying, no, my lender checked this out. He's good. These people qualify, and then they accept your offer, and you go through this whole process, and oh well, no, the guy hasn't been working for 2 years. He doesn't, he doesn't qualify. We can't use his income.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that whole thing just came crumbling down, and you can't.
Crashing down.
So that makes you look, you know what I mean? It's just, so it's really, it's just being professional and being upfront. And so I don't, now I've gotten, in my career, I've gotten pushbacks from agents who don't like that.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Who
Man, you
they
can't
they
just get me a
they
pre-approval.
can send me a proposal. Like right now, I'm on the way to put an offer. Like, sorry, that's just not, I'm not the lender that does that. Like, you're just gonna, I need to talk to the buyer. I need to see what the buyer is trying to do. I need to see
Mhm.
what they're, you know what I mean? And I need to see the income docs. So I need to verify that they actually qualify for the mortgage.
Yeah.
Does that take longer? Yes. Depends on the buyer when they get me the documents. I do my
Mhm.
job right away, but I have to get the documents. And for the most part, people have that nowadays. There's no such thing as making copies of pay stubs, and it's all electronic. I mean, just nowadays, that's just so
It's
easy to do.
almost instantaneously.
Yep. Not every not every employee, not every employer, it's 100% on, in that. And there are some exceptions where
Mhm.
you got to do the manual. There's
Yeah,
still
if you're
companies
working for
that
a small
do
business or a
the,
startup.
exactly. I mean, there's companies that don't have pay stubs. They have payroll register. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there's still a
Yeah.
couple. I mean, those are the exceptions, and you got to work with those. But for the most part, people are able to do, electronic verification of everything, income and assets.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very easy thing to do and easy to follow. So it's not hard to do that. So if you get all those docs up front, you have a smooth transaction. So what the same day mortgage is really, just put that times X, 10X. You just get the docs up front in 8 hours and you can close in 10 days. Same day mortgage approval.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a third of the time. If a standard transaction is 30 days, now you have the ability to close in 10. That's great. I
Correct.
love that.
Nope.
All right. So I'm glad we're both part of these organizations that are, revolutionizing the industry.
100%. Listen, I'm not, technology is not my thing. It really
Mhm.
isn't. I'm old school, and I still do when I talk to a borrower. I don't know if you can see it, but you see, this is a notebook. This
Nope.
is
Oh, I
uh,
see the notebook. Yeah, yeah.
it's a notebook, right? It's here on my desk. When I talk to a
Uh-huh.
buyer, I write down in a notebook, and I do that stuff in my mind and by hand. The
Mhm.
qualification, that's just, I'm just old school. I mean, the
Yeah,
computer does everything, but I do everything by hand, and then I go on the computer and put everything. So technology is not, it's not my strength, right? I didn't come to Origin Point because of the technology. Some people
mhm,
actually do that. Some LOs make decisions based on that. That wasn't the decision. Like, that had really no bearing on it.
mhm.
When I switched over and I saw the actual technology, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. I mean, it
Blown away.
really is. Yeah, it really, really, really is some cool technology.
Yeah,
And it does make things much faster and much easier to work. And the main thing is, if people do the stuff, meaning upload the income, and and the file gets looked at and underwritten, it is a much, much better transaction for the buyer, much better process, much more peaceful and calm. Things come up 100%, but that part, the uncertainty, when you take that away, people feel a lot better.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So with that said, that wraps up today's episode. Robert Morillo with Team Aroa, broker associate with Team Aroa at Compass. Signing off here, license number BK3373543. John, let them know
John
how to reach you
Sepulveda,
and
Origin Point, and MLS 1309244. Great talking to everybody. Hope this information was useful, and we will see you tomorrow.
alrighty. Don't forget to like and subscribe, comment, share, like and subscribe on YouTube, and join us on Facebook, the DM Florida Real Estate.